A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm trying to check the date, 18th day in the month of June. Whoa, the year is literally racing. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Welcome. Kelly.
Jeff, it's good to see you again. Well, good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, our viewers around the world. I'm Kelly Giga. I mean, always a delight to be on this show and discuss issues of national interest.
Yeah, whenever I would drag people like you into the show, say, oh, you guys made me wake up early.
Early.
It's very difficult.
I don't know how you guys do it consistently 5 days in a week, but I don't envy you guys at all.
No matter how much you don't get used to it, you have to get used to it.
Absolutely.
It moves from a profession to a vocation, so you just have to love it.
I've had this experience on radio, actually, but on TV, consistently doing it for 5 days in a week. Whoa.
We're doing our bit. All right, let's tell you guys some of the stories we've been tracking as far as Nigeria and things around the world is concerned. But we would like to start from what happened at the in the courts in the UK, where the UK court has cleared former Minister of Petroleum Resources Alison Madueke of bribery charges. Remember, she was the Minister of Petroleum under the Goodluck Jonathan administration, former president. She was also the first woman female president of OPEC, but there were issues around allegation that she had collected bribe during her time in office, which is in contravention of literally any law anywhere, including our ICPC Act of 2000. But she was cleared of 6 charges of bribery at the Southwark Crown Court yesterday after a 5-month trial. That's credited to our lawyer. I'm sure you've been seeing the videos as well of what played out in the UK. After that, she was like, it's been taking a toll on her. And a lot of Nigerians have a lot of opinion about Alison Madueke. But just following through that story, the prosecutor told the jury at the London court that there were gross delays in the charges being brought, resulting in great deal of material which should have established her innocence being denied. She had been accused of accepting, so these are the issues, financial or other advantages from individuals linked to 2 energy companies that had secured contracts with Nigeria's state-owned petroleum corporation, that's the NNPCL, where she was the country's Minister of Petroleum or Minister of Oil, as they call it there. She had been accused of the prosecutors of enjoying what they consider life of luxury, funded by those interested in lucrative oil and gas contracts. Her lifestyle was described as involving chauffeur-driven cars, a private jet flights to Nigeria, refurbishment work, and staff costs at several London properties. So there were so many things that happened, but her defense had maintained the records proving her innocence had disappeared and that she no longer had access to papers at her home in Nigeria, as the British police had retained her passport since her first arrest 11 years ago. So that's the story. So as far as the issue of alleging that she had collected bribe in contravention to our own laws, not even that's even that. So if you look at, I think section 810 or so, and maybe 17 of the ICPC Act, you see those kickbacks and all of that are illegal when you're in service. But now she's been cleared and acquitted. I don't know whether she has more cases, but now she's a free woman as far as these bribery charges are concerned. So that's the latest as far as Alison Madueke, Diezani Alison Madueke, former Minister of Petroleum, is concerned.
Well, I think it's a big win for her and her family. The exact words that she has described or painted this is that this 11-year international probe and trial described it as an arduous and traumatic nightmare. So I can only imagine 11 years having to battle one court to the other, having to defend yourself. For me, I mean, for so many years, I was in love with her because she was Nigeria's or the first female OPEC president. I hope I got that. OPEC president. So for me, I was in love with her for many years because when people fly the colors of our country really, really high, and then you just want to give them their credits. But when the probes, and trials started, I was just wondering what's going to happen to her and all of that. So it's good to see her finally clear her name on the international stage. It's left to be seen whether or not here in Nigeria there are laws that are going to also, she's going to face the courts here in Nigeria as well. But I think it's a big win for her and her legal team. All credit to them as well. We've had to go through these 11 years. It also speaks to the fact that, you know what, no matter what, one day you get your verdict. 11 years, sometimes we paint the Nigerian judiciary system here as, you know, taking so much time. I mean, not a defense for them, but even in the courts in UK, it has taken them 11 years, you know, to go through this international probe and trial. So it's good to see that finally she has that verdict in her favor. We'll wait and see if there will be perhaps more charges against her here, you know, in Nigeria. But besides that,
she was. I think she was arrested 11 years ago. I don't know whether the prosecution took that long because they have to put all the papers together. So I think, from the best of my knowledge, she had this case at the Crown Court in Southwark. You're seeing here, bribery, which she has now been acquitted of. I think she has about something close to 11 to 12 cases. The EFCC and the rest of them are waiting for her right here in Nigeria. They have been waiting for her, I'm sure. If they have their way, they'll bring her back, repatriate her back to come and answer questions based on their own allegations against her. So, as you said, it's a win for her. That's to speak to everybody who is in public service. Now or tomorrow, or those that have been there, you will be asked questions. So we're, as journalists, when we hold you to account every time we come on air or interview you, we're actually doing you a favor to help you know that the money you're managing, we don't care whether you were a billionaire, you are richer than our own Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest and I think the richest black man in the world. That is your personal money. But as soon as you come into public service, no matter what you had before, you are now managing people's commonwealth. And so every one kobo, you will account for it. You will explain yourself if there is suspicion of wrongdoing as far as the judiciary is concerned. So let's wait and see. Cleared in the Crown Court in London. Let's wait and see what will happen in Nigeria. Whether the EFCC will be able to bring her back to come and answer questions here, or she will just be using her lawyers right here in Nigeria. But let's come back home to Nigeria, where I understand the NDC has made their members to sign some forms so that it will not defect. Let me start with you. What do you make? Okay.
Well, I think that is coming to me as a surprise. The story out there is that members of the NDC were asked to sign sort of a loyalty affidavit form, just to say, you know what, sign this form so that, and they say the aim is that, you know what, just to show that you're loyal, you don't get to defect. You know how our Nigerian politicians like to cross carpet, or like to defect. So the arguments from the party leadership is that this is to show that you are with us and you will not leave us, you know, as the elections draw nearer. And you know how our Nigerian politicians can also be. NDC today in the morning, by night ADC, by the next day APC. So that's the argument from the party leadership. But some would also question perhaps if that is not a way of limiting people or trying to stifle people or try to, you know, not allow people express their freedom of expression. As much as I would not argue for people defecting, you know, every here and now, one will also say, you know what, people should be able to express themselves. For instance, the presidential candidates of the party, he has had to move around for almost 4 or 5 parties, ABGA to PDP, to Labour Party, to ADC, and now NDC. So, I mean, what if he had filled that form in ABGA some years ago? That loyalty form is having, you guys are making people feel now in your party. He will not be in the NDC today. So, allow people sort of express themselves and just allow people, you know, because it's in the Constitution that people need to have that freedom of expression. I'm not sure if this is a good way, a good foundation or a good antecedent for the NDC? Because there have been questions about the leadership. We know that most of the national meetings are being held in the national leaders' house, Senator Sereke Dixon and all of that. People are saying that, you know what, I'm not sure that is really, really good for the party. Is this a good foundation, a good basis for the NDC? It looks like with Obi in that party, many young Nigerians may be having some sort of hope, but seeing these trends and some of the allegations, even from the NDC, which people would have thought that, you know what, this is a new breed. There are questions. Aisha Yusufu was asked to step down, asked to go to the House of Reps, and she said, no, what, House of Reps is too small for me. There have been aggrieved members as well in the NDC some have even had to sue the NDC. You know, so I'm just wondering how all of this is going to play out for the party and all of that. But it's interesting, Nigeria's political system or terrain will always get to see many of these things play out. So much drama to unpack as we count down to 2027, Jeff.
There's a lot that has to happen in politics. So the fundamental problem, I understand what the NDC is trying to do, but it's not going to work. Let me give them that bad news early. So there are different, in terms of law, there is the ground norm, the constitution. Then there are acts of parliament, the things that establish the like of INEC and all of these people. There are those acts of parliament. And then there are other subsidiary laws, EOs, that's executive orders, party constitution, INEC guidelines, all of those. So if you look at the layering, so what is the ground norm? The ground norm is very clear that people have the freedom of association. They have the liberty to associate with whoever they want to associate with. On the other hand as well, the Constitution also is very clear in certain sections, like Section 109, when it's very express about defection issues, which a lot of the politicians these days have turned that section on its head. If I was to be part of the drafting committee, I would like it to be removed entirely from the Constitution, or we draft it such that as soon as you resign from a political party, it doesn't matter what the justification is, you lose your seat automatically. I'll put that in the Constitution. You will lose your seat automatically because the party sponsors you, and then you can go and fight for your seats through any other platform, because I think it happens in Ghana also. But now there are so many processes. Before your seat is declared vacant, there are provisos that there must be division in your party, I think at the national level, based on the locus classicus of Abegunde case in Ondo State. Now, so sometimes politicians were not sure what they mean by division and disagreement. Mere disagreement can make some people defect. They've interpreted division to mean 1,001 things, but division means division based on the what of that locus classicus has been as far as the Abegunde case is concerned. So I'm establishing all this premise in law to say that it may be difficult. What the party, I think, and every party should do is to begin to consolidate on building ideologies as much as possible. So if the ground, because that's where the room with which some of these politicians run to defect into other parties. So say, okay, my party is having problems at the top, and that's why Section 109, 1G, my seat cannot be declared vacant. You remember Abaribe? Yeah. Senator Abaribe had moved from, I think it was moving from ABGA to Labour Party or one of those parties, and they almost, literally, the Senate almost declared his seat vacant because the argument was, excuse me, sir, ABGA is a very stable party, so why are you defecting? He said he was suspended. Mascots, who's a member of the House of Reps from Abia State still, also defected, but nobody made a fuss out of it. Bello El-Rufai, defect. APC is a stable party. They have their issues, but at least they are not a divided party. Bello El-Rufai defected from APC to ADC. There was no noise about. So sometimes you understand, you actually, politicians just interpret the law the way they want to interpret it, based on who is involved. And it's just a funny way of, that's why I feel that it's either we scrap that segment or section of the Constitution, or rephrase it such that if you are defecting in the Constitution, let's write if you defect, no matter how reasonable, rational, whatever it is, you will lose your seat because the party sponsored you. But coming back to the issue of the NDC, I think they should spend a lot of time building what other parties may not have, ideology. Nigerian politicians, with greatest respect to all of you, are mostly, maybe not all of them, driven by two things: subservience to power. That's number one. That's why you see they gravitate towards the party that is in power, because they want to survive. Some of them don't have a second address. Outside politics, they cannot be anything useful, some of them, with the greatest respect. Then, you know, the subservience to power is very important to them. Self-preservation, which is AKA self-interest. People just want to, you know, interest policy is about the game of interest. So NDC, it looks like a good move. They want to do so a lot of housekeeping. They are trying to do so many things at the same time. Sometimes they get confused about what they are doing, and they will argue that they are not confused. But we are watching and seeing what they can now do is to build ideologically driven party, so that defection is going to be as easy as possible. But using legislation that is third tier to hold people not to defect, even the Constitution couldn't do that, not to talk of a political party. I don't see it working. I don't see it working.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see. Look, these are interesting times. Nigerian politicians, and they have a way of doing these things. They do it without fear. No. Some people have questioned in very recent times, how come Senator Adams Oshomole have finally found his voice? He's been speaking, he's been very vocal, attacking the Senate president. I don't think
he's ever lost his voice anyway. It's just that he's not been provoked enough.
No, because some will say, you know what, all of a sudden he's for instance, he has defended Senator Natasha very recently. Some said, when this thing happened, you didn't say anything, you didn't come out in her defense. All of a sudden, you're questioning her, or questioning why she was suspended now. There's the NNPCL allegations, there's the Akpabio's daughter, you know, alleged forgery claim and all of that. All of a sudden, he's been very vocal in very recent times. If you know Oshomole really very well, so many years ago, as a comrade, as someone was, you know, involved in the struggle and all of that, he was really very vocal, very critical and all of that. But when he became a politician, a Edo State governor, some said he did well, some said he didn't do well. And in very recent times now, as a senator, 3 years, we didn't really hear his voice, so to say. Personally, that's my opinion. But in very recent times, he's been here and there.
He's been hit, so he has to hit that. Oshomole is not somebody who runs away from a battle. I don't know him to be that kind of person. He'll fight you. He's a comrade, always a comrade who always will. He has his own excesses, with the greatest respect, and we know what those excesses are.
Yeah.
But he will speak his mind. As what worries me, and I'm hoping that the 11th National Assembly will be an improvement, or way better than this 10th Assembly. They keep pushing back that they are not a rubber stamp, but Nigerians have made up their mind that we thought Ahmed Lawan-led Senate was a low,
but this
Akpabio Senate has taken it way down. That is, it's not my opinion. All you have to do is to sample opinion and ask questions. But the federal government has also said that, please don't be alarmed. The recommendation in the document by IMF recommending, you know, revenue mobilization, revenue generation, because we have both a revenue problem and a spending priority problem in Nigeria. They've suggested taxes for telcos, maybe phone calls and all of that, and also for petroleum products. The federal government said, please, it's just a recommendation. Nothing of such is happening right now. So let's hold on to that and see how, because Nigeria is already difficult for a lot of people. So the federal government said, you don't have anything to worry. Any new telecoms and fuel taxes are untrue. It was just a proposal by IMF suggesting ways that government can rally revenue for their fiscal responsibility. But as it stands now, nothing has been taken in terms of all of that. I think it's time for us to go on a break. And when we come back after this break,
because Nigerians can't even survive another round of taxation right now.
We'll go on this break. And when we come back after this break, we'll bring in our guests to help us make sense of what the papers will be saying. Stay with us.
All right, so let's get things started this morning as we take a look at our national dailies. Chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts, Enugu State Chapter, Dr. Ambrose Igboke joins us live now from the coal city. Dr. Ambrose, good to see you. You were in Lagos last week.
Good morning, Kelly. I came around and I didn't see you, and it's good to see you again.
Yes, I wasn't on the show. Whenever I'm on the show, I don't have any business in this premises in the morning.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's a number of papers here for us to start with, but I would like us to start with the New Telegraph. It says, Minority Caucus Insecurity, Judicial Chaos Threatening 2027 Polls. Minority Caucus Insecurity, Judicial Chaos Threatening 2027 Polls accuses Tinubu's government of chasing election over governance, demands 72-hour rescue for Oyo abductees. It says APC afraid of election, wants coronation. That's credited to Uche Secondus. Dr. Igboke, today is day 30 since the Oyo students kidnapped. 30 days. Those students and teachers have been in captivity 30 days. The Oyo State government claims it knows where these students are. For me, that's my interest. Before the 2027 polls, my interest is the fact that for 30 days in Oyo State, these people are still in captivity. What exactly are we dealing with here?
When I think about the situation of people in captivity, of stories that were told by those who were captured and released, about the stories of trauma, stories of starvation, stories of sodomization, rape, stories of torture, and all kinds of things. You shudder at the kind of experience that these children will be going through with their teachers. These are little children. A lot of times, many adults don't even survive this kind of, horrifying experience and condition. But these are children, so it's going to be more difficult for them. I don't even seem to be able to logically explain or reason the fact that we have a government and these things are happening. I don't seem to be able to explain it to myself. So I don't even know how to explain it to others. That we have a government whose primary responsibility as spelled out in the Constitution is the security of its citizens and welfare, who has seemingly abdicated that position, who gallivants about party screening, party rallies, and all those things, and just moves on as if nothing happened. I've issued usual press releases, press statements, presidential spokespersons coming out to defend and give reasons. The Senate president shamelessly saying that it's politicians that are causing the insecurity. And I keep reminding the Senate president that we had there was insecurity last year. There was no election last year. There was no election in 2024. There was no election in 2018. There was no election in 2017. All those things were happening. And then he comes with a straight face, tell Nigerians that it is because of those politicians who want to make sure they don't come back to power. That is how low we have sunk. So that means that these things can be just, briefly explained away without any sort of seriousness. So if the number 3 man on the country can give that kind of explanation, then little wonder why nothing is being done actually, that these children have spent 30 days. Remember, there are some people who have spent 1 year. There are people who have spent 3 years, 4 years. The Dapchi girls, the Chibok girls has there. The children from other places that were abducted, people that were abducted, the quiet ones that we don't even know about. So people have, been killed, been massacred, and all we get are press releases. So what it goes to show is that there is a problem, that we have come to accept this abnormality and that we now see it as a way of life. So the average Nigerian just lives his life that, oh, God protect me. If I go back and come home, fine. If I don't come back, fine. Because that is where we have found ourselves. But more importantly for me too, is the fact that the outrage is low. In fact, there is none. Nigerian citizens seem to now accept their fate And so this is how we are now living. We are now living like animals in the jungle. I mean, when you show in documentary films, you show about the jungle where a pack of animals will be going and they're attacked by hyenas or attacked by lions or tigers, and they may not come back to their homes. So that is how we live now, existential livelihood, where the sacredness of life is not respected. And it's unfortunate that even as citizens, we seem docile about it and are not taking the government to task.
Okay, let's go to Vanguard. You think this is lamentation? Let's bring in another one that may even be worse. Vanguard is leading with Japa. Only 55,000 doctors left to treat 220 million Nigerians. 16,000 doctors emigrated in 5 years. Nigeria's mental health crisis worsening, that's according to ARD, FNPH in Yaba. 85% of Nigerians with mental disorders lack treatment access. So if you go to the story itself, they had a meeting, the Ordinary General Meeting and Scientific Conference of the Association of Resident Doctors, ARD, Federal Psychiatric Hospital in Yaba. The theme for that particular meeting was few doctors, too many patients, the consequence of manpower shortage on mental well-being of Nigerians. We should be alarmed, shouldn't we?
We are already alarmed because the consequences are already showing. The remaining doctors that are here are dropping dead. If you take the statistics of doctors that have died in the last 3 years, it is alarming. Especially in teaching hospitals, you see doctors dropping dead because of exhaustion, because of overwork, because there are few doctors. They run shifts round. They are still on call, placed on call. I have a doctor friends, and each time you see them, most of them are looking harangued. Most of them are looking, not taken care of. Most of them are looking exhausted, and some of them are dropping dead. So it's already telling on us. And why is this, Jakba? Because our healthcare professionals, just like many other professionals, are not taken care of. They are not being commensurately paid well. It is happening almost in every profession that that allows them to. For example, even in academia, you see our best brains are being poached by universities in other countries, in other continents. They are living in droves too. The most scary part of it is that if you go to a nursing school or a nursing college or the department of nursing in a university, talk to the young lads who are students of that department or college. The next thing they will tell you is that they want to get their nursing license, do the mandatory practice of 1 year, whatever, write the exams that they write for practicing in America or the United Kingdom, Europe, Canada, and then they want to get out of this country. And you see a lot of parents and guardians investing so much in these medical courses like nursing and medicine to ensure that they want to send their children with the sole aim of maybe sending their children overseas to make money for the family. I don't blame them because these are lucrative courses, professionals outside. So why can't we make it viable here? Look at the budget for there was a time the budgeted for Aso Clinic that the president's wife, I think Aisha Buhari, went there and didn't even say Panadol or paracetamol to even treat anybody. What is our defense budget? What is our healthcare budget? What is our education budget for the teaching hospitals and the rest? We find out that they are major. In fact, so many hospitals don't even have teaching hospitals, don't even have office accommodation for doctors. Doctors roam around in many teaching hospitals, they don't have offices. A lot of things that our doctors are not even given the enabling environments to work. They don't have the tools, they don't have the internet. I remember one medical foundation that just came from America, which I worked with. They went to University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital to even start to install satellites for them to be able to do proper work in terms of documentation. Many hospitals don't even have it. So these are things that befuddles me. The state governors sit down, a lot of them. Look at what Ebonyi state governor did, I think last year or 2 years ago. where he was able to give doctors houses and were able to give them cars and increase their salary so that they can have a cushioning effect, so that the eye will not be in the Japa area. Many governors don't even care. For example, in Enugu here, I know that they are teaching hospital, state teaching hospital. They're also building offices, a lot of offices for doctors to even have a place to stay at nursing stations.
All right.
So these things are absent in many of that teaching hospitals. They don't even have the environment to work, to have the right frame of mind to do diagnosis and prescriptions. It's unfortunate. And that in a country where in the 1968-69, the Saudi royal family was coming to this country to take medical treatment, and the reverse is now the case. We are now doing medical tourism in what is it called, in Dubai, in South Africa, in India, and the rest. Again, let me put this point before I drop this subject matter. A lot of people just build infrastructure that don't take care of the doctor. It's not about building hospitals. It's also about building the personnel that will work in those hospitals.
Dr. Bouquet, I mean, this analysis is really compelling, and I totally agree with you because I've had to also experience firsthand, Nigeria's healthcare system. I'm not sure exactly if it's deliberate, if it's intentional to make the government facilities appear in some kind of way so that the private hospitals can perform better. For instance, in fact, there's a phrase in my head, "May Nigeria not happen to you." Look, 2 days ago, I had sort of an emergency of someone really close, and we rushed a newborn who was only about 5 hours into this earth to a government hospital. And by the time we got there, somewhere around 3 a.m., I tell you what, it's a specialist hospital for children owned by the government in Victoria Island. It's a popular place. If I mention it, people would know. But by the time we got there, you know what? There were people just lying down on the floor. People were sleeping. And I was like, wow. That's when that phrase, "May Nigeria not happen to you," just rang in my head. And sadly, so that baby died yesterday. So it's really devastating, because there are people who have had to go to hospitals and there was once industrial action or the other, and they couldn't attend to them, and they passed. That's why I understand, in LASU, for instance, the ARD LASU, they have been on strike for a 3-day warning strike, and they are threatening to shut down activities after this 3-day warning strike if nothing is done. So it's really alarming. We should be concerned if we have just 55,000 doctors to attend to 200 million Nigerians. For the elites, they know how to take care of themselves. The concern here is the average Nigerian man who perhaps his monthly earnings cannot cater for his medical bills and that of his family and all of that. But let's take a look at this Nigeria, which gets our attention next. It leads with one of the biggest stories yesterday: bribery, no oil stains on Desiani. UK court rules. No oil stains on Desiani. UK court rules. Ex-petroleum minister acquitted on 6 counts. 11 years of international probe and trial. Finally, she gets her verdict, and it's victory for Desiani, Alison Maduke, and her team of lawyers. I wonder how you're receiving this news in southeast Nigeria.
Well, I think the accusation is not for southeast Nigeria, it's for the country. But immediately I got the news, one of the things that immediately came to my mind is the danger of media trial. The danger of not hearing from the accused, the danger of public pronouncement of guilt before the court actually does that. So one begins to wonder how even the Nigerian, EFCC and some other, the corruption agencies, anti-corruption agencies. I will remember how they seized some of our, things that she owns, like I think she's her bra, they say it's the golden one. I mean, it's full of diamond. That they seized a lot of other things, and that they were all stolen and the rest. She has not been tried. I don't think she has been tried in a Nigerian court. I don't know any whether she has been convicted in a Nigerian court. But even while the international one was going on, we're already calling her a thief. People were already calling her. People are already giving their own verdict. And let us remember that UK courts are very, very thorough in whatever they do, and that is why it took this time. But again, they are saying that they didn't see anything. So the question is, for the Nigerian people accusing her, what are they covering up something? Is it something bigger than her? Is it something that she obeyed instructions that is not linked to her directly? So now that the UK courts have finished their work, it's time for Nigerian courts to do their own, and then let us come out clean. But for me, the greatest, perspective I look on this is the danger of public trial.
Okay, I was just going to maybe just stay with this Nigeria for a moment. So just to the top right of this Nigeria, Dr. Boke, maybe very briefly, we see another story there that is really concerning very many Nigerians as well. Children accounts for 75% of Africa's modern slavery victims. That's coming from NAPTIG. Children accounts for 75% of Africa's modern slavery victims. Dr. Kweke, how worrying is this?
It is as worrying as you can see, or even deeper. It's a deeper evil that you can see. A few days ago, there was a video circulating on the internet about a child of 5 years whose guardian was, maltreated. He had scabs all over his body, sores all over his body from his head to his toes. Covered with sauce by beating, and we heard that the woman melted nylon waterproof and then used the hot iron to pour on the child's body, and he gave all the sore and the rest. So we have so many deranged individuals, people who are psychopathic patients, whose only way to exercise their madness is against vulnerable people. And when we say children, we're looking at people from 17 years old down. Those are children. And in our African culture has enabled it, because we take our children to relatives to stay with. We distribute our children. Again, population control, no birth control in many places. Some families will give birth to more than we can take care of. They say, as far as God brings children, now God will train them. Those kind of street language. And then people just give birth and cannot take care. So they look for ways to distribute their children. And even when children complain, they tell them to stay there, because the parents don't have the authority because of poverty and so many other things. So it comes about hawking. This includes even hawking. This includes using children as house helps. This comes as including children as a nanny, using children in a farm, using children for sex slaves. If you go to a lot of African countries, you will see a lot of children under age, 14, 15 years, teenagers, doing prostitution and all the other kind of things. So this is very deep, and we see it every day. But the biggest problem, I even my worry, is that we don't even say anything. You see a lot of children being maltreated, being visited with evil, and the neighbors around just pretend as nothing happens. And so we should try to educate, create awareness that if you see something, you begin to say something. And that the state governments, local governments should become more practical or pragmatic in dealing with these issues, because a lot of them just have ministries of gender, child, ministry of these, they do budget, there's nothing happening there. I think it is time also to go down and make sure that perpetrators are brought to book, and then they should create a system where victims of this kind of thing are rehabilitated without the help, because there's no point intervening and then you leave the child and then it goes back to the same problem, because it's poor and these people cannot do it. So they just roll around the child and the issues continue. So it is sad development for us. Children should be nurtured. Children should be trained. Children should have the best of life so that they can become better citizens. Because when they treat them bad like this and they become slaves like this, they become traumatized adults. Right. And this is hardship on the country. And maybe that is part of the thing we're experiencing today with what is happening at some levels of the country, where sometimes you start asking yourself, is this guy for real?
Yeah,
the way he behaves or she behaves.
Yeah, we just have about a minute. If you can do this for the Guardian newspaper, always doing a great work in their front page. 2027 polls, that's the Guardian newspaper. Conflicting court orders, weak oversight raises credibility doubts. So you can see poor oversight, big man politics, heavy war chest politics, internal democracy, conflicting judicial pronouncement. We saw the one by the recent one that is seen as an embarrassment to the judiciary recently, the owner of Justice Lifo, who went against the order of the higher court. There are so many things we can look at. So quickly, if you can speak to this in just about a minute.
Well, I think just straightforward to the point, every judicial officer should be punished swiftly, immediately, and without. So, like National Judicial Council should, for example, the justice that went contrary, gave contrary pronouncement to a higher court, to that of a higher court, should be sanctioned immediately. Because if these sanctions don't take place immediately, other people will be emboldened to copy what the justice did. So if a justice can be that, bring himself that low, then he should be removed immediately. And with this, I think they can start as a deterrent. But if there's no deterrent, more justice will continue to commit atrocities, especially in the face of the elections are coming very close. A lot of politicians are desperate, and therefore we should minimize this kind of issues by making sure that those who commit this kind of atrocities in the judiciary are immediately suffer the consequences.
Well, it's a fine place to anchor a conversation with you this morning. Dr. Angus Igboke is the chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts, Enugu State Chapter. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Well, this is the morning brief. Let's get talking this morning. So much to unpack for you. This morning we get to head to Ekiti State as we talk about the elections there, the governorship elections there. 11 candidates. I'm not sure if a lot of residents in that state are aware that we even have other candidates participating in these elections this weekend. Plus, on the program, we get to talk the attacks in South Africa, precisely the xenophobic attacks. We get some perspectives from SA, and then we get to discuss as well the digital switchover. For years and years now, it's been in the pipeline. What's exactly is the update? We'll tell you all of these and more this morning on the program. Stay with us here. We're back in just a moment.
All right, before we expand to all the conversations we have today, let's begin from what will be happening in the next 48 hours in Ekiti State, southwest Nigeria. It's an off-cycle election where the people of the state have a decision to make. Ekiti decides. They either keep the job of the incumbent who is seeking re-election, or they take him out and bring in somebody else if they feel it's not done a good job. 16 local government areas, over 170 wards, over 1 million people registered to vote, and almost 2,500 polling units. Our eyes as Channels Television will be at these places to bring you up to speed. So Saturday is a good day for you to be close to your television or to the devices with which you get information from Channels. Let's bring in the Head of Knowledge Management and Learning at Yaga Africa, Sophia Bichi, joins us virtually from Ado, Ekiti, the state capital. Sophia, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So how is Ekiti? Because I'm sure maybe by now you would have eaten pounded yam, Ekiti Kete, and they like pounded yam in Ekiti State. But just so give us an update of what we need to know as preliminary to the deeper conversation.
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is for us to know that this will be the first election that will be conducted under the new Electoral Act 2026. And this gives us the opportunity to test some of the provisions in the Act, especially electronic transmission of results and other new administrative reforms that came into being after the last general elections. Again, the new regulation and guidelines for elections that was developed after the passage of this new Electoral Act has made some significant provisions, such as primary verification of election result, which brings about the use of electronic from ECAP, that's electronic result form. What this means is that for the first time, the ad hoc staff or the presiding officers at the polling units will be able to type in the election results while they snap the result as they used to do to upload into the IRS, then compare the results. And this is a new introduction that is being done by INEC. So this is an opportunity for us to test some of these provisions. Remember that aside the upcoming Osun governorship elections, this will be the only elections that will give us opportunity to make some of these tests and to also make all the necessary amends we need to do ahead of the 2027 elections, which is less than 7 months away from now.
All right, so talk to us about the preparedness of INEC. I know that this is the second election, but this is the first governorship election under the, I think electoral, if I stand to be corrected, or under the current leadership of Joash Amopiton. In terms of preparation by INEC, what feelers are you getting? I was in Anambra the last time, and I know that they have more local government, more wards, and more registered voters. But by, say, 8 a.m., a day after the election, which was a Sunday morning, in fact, I saw that the result was already being announced from the INEC secretaries in Anambra State. So everything was literally, one straight move. So in terms of preparations, what do you see?
Yeah, in terms of preparations, we've seen that INEC has, based on its timetable, conducted majority of the activities on the timeline. I think 2 are left ahead of the elections, which is the deployment of election materials from the CBN, which is happening today, as well as activation of the rack centers that is happening tomorrow between 12 noon to 6 p.m. according to INEC. And we've seen INEC also conduct the mock accreditation exercise for as they have stated. Though we observe some of this exercise, including the training of election materials, but if you have seen our report of the mock accreditation exercise, we've also highlighted and noted the lack of fully implementation of some of the provisions of the 2026 Electoral Act. But again, to say that in terms of the environment is relatively peaceful for now, and we encourage citizens to continue and political parties to continue in this direction. You've also talked about the past election. Truly, the last election, specifically the 2022 governorship elections, is one of the elections in that year that finished a bit early, which is commendable. And we also know that Ekiti has just 16 states, which also make it very possible to. But we know that there are other underlying factors, such as security threats, especially the insecurity around the state. We've had cases of kidnapping in some part of the state, which we think might also create some fears in the minds of the citizens. But generally, for INEC, we commend INEC for what they've done thus far, and not to relent, not to sit back, to ensure that the perennial logistics challenges we have in our election day management is also averted.
I'm glad that you've had to mention the issues around the security challenges there, the issues around banditry, heather farmer clashes, which we've seen perhaps we believe is going to define these elections. Well, Jeff and I were having a conversation as to how many candidates we have for these governorship elections. INEC, I think, says 14. I've seen
13.
13. So confirm that we have, for now it's 13.
For now.
For now,
we
13.
know that it's 13. It was 12 until PDP joined. It was 12 until PDP joined. And based on the list, we have 13. And it's interesting to note that of all the 13 political parties, none of them fielded a female candidate or even a person with disability as a candidate for this election. So this also tells us how inclusive our political parties are when it comes to election representation.
Who do we hold responsible for that, Mrs. Bishi? Because I'm not sure exactly now. Who do we hold responsible? Women, I think, have more numbers. So why are the women not able to coordinate themselves and pick one person to represent them? I think we have, yes, you said 13 candidates, all males. I think we have about 16 female candidates earlier on as deputy governors and all of that. But who do we hold responsible?
the political parties, because if we're talking about inclusion, political parties are institutions that need to put on measures to encourage women to participate and even people with disability to participate, because election is all about inclusion. And you rightly say that we have a large population of a large part of our population are women, so why should we also go into this without women? And if you look at the statistics, day in, day out, the number of women representative, women in representative office is reducing by the day. So political parties, and that's where affirmative action comes in. There's where other legal framework and other intentional actions need to come in, so that you can have more of certain groups of people that have long time be marginalized be part of this, because participation is beyond voting. It's also being seen and being heard and being visible.
Mrs. Safia, let's look at all politics. They say is local. So I'm wondering, from the analytics that Yaga and other CSOs have done from the Situation Room, besides the logistics, the process, which is what the CSOs are really all about, ensuring that the process is followed through in compliance with INEC guidelines and the Electoral Act as amended. What issues do you think will impact choices as far as this election is concerned?
To my mind, the first issue will be economic factors. Just on Monday, we went for community sensitization in some markets in the state, especially the biggest market in Ekiti. And part of the feelers we got, it was a sensitization meeting for people to turn out on election and also share some of the information about the elections, especially as it's being shared from INEC. But some of the feelers we got is that people are a bit unhappy with the economic situation. So believe me, this might be one of the factors that will determine people's actions and behaviors in the election space. Then secondly is insecurity, especially in local governments that have faced insecurity activities in recent times. Local government like mobile, local government like Lejimiji, where kidnappings happen. If you go there, as at last week, by 7 p.m., community members are not, you won't see much people outside, and this is because of the fear those incidents have created. But it's nice to also know that the police and INEC has assured, they both have assured citizens of their safety and the fact that everything within the elections and during the election period will be done to ensure the safety of both voters and all election workers. So insecurity, one, economic factors, and will be the top contenders for me in this election. But again, you know how our election system is. People sometimes are not really looking at the issues. People are looking at what they can get at the moment. Yeah. While we are talking about these issues, there are people that are still waiting for what can I get at the moment? What can I get in terms of resource materials? And these are some of the factors. But we've seen that in the mock accreditation, as usual, that there was a low turnout. And we're also calling on political parties, especially today will be almost the last day it's even the last day for them to conduct their campaign, to call on people to campaign and encourage people to turn out and vote. While political parties while civil society and INEC is doing that, but we think political parties should engage in turning out the vote. But in terms of issues, I personally have not seen serious debate about the key issues, even from political parties. It's just about we're coming back, and I cannot. The political parties are not even defining the key issues. It's just citizens' experiences that is defining the decider of the elections, as against political campaign speech, political campaign engagement, because our campaigns to an extent are not very issue-based, and this is what we should encourage as we engage the next general elections. Aside the distractions we've been seeing in our society, just today's news review that you did a few minutes ago shows that there are lots of distractions that is not even making citizens to pay attention to the issues that will inform their decisions in elections.
I was going to ask you, as the head of knowledge management and learning, Yaga Africa, how the people have had to receive your awareness campaigns. The second part of my question is, while you are busy and other CSOs trying to share knowledge and information and trying to, transform the minds of the residents, what are the parties sharing to them? Because you've mentioned that as well, that people are a bit concerned about what they get now. So what have you seen and heard that the parties are sharing to them? Rice, money?
Yeah, rice, money, and Indomie, and all these food items. People are sharing. People are making promises ahead of the elections. We've heard, I cannot confirm this, but we've also heard that some people are pledging and are giving down payments for now in the pre-election environment to make the balance payment after the elections. These are rumors. We don't know if it's true, but you know that lack of information is an indicator of election violence itself, because it might lead to disinformation, misinformation, or any form of information disorder that might lead to some violent action within the election system, as well as inform citizens' behavior or choices when it comes to elections. And that's why it looks like we are while political parties who are supposed to be interested in telling people, sharing information about the elections, because they are the beneficiaries of this vote. While they are busy doing some other things, we find it very important because these elections belong to us. It's not all about the political parties. And I also want to note that there's also an advantage in low turnout. There are times that it favors some political class, because the more people turn out, the more likelihood the election will be more competitive, and there's a likelihood that some persons might not win the elections. And that's why you see people engage in sharing this information about the elections, people sharing fake information about candidates' participation, about timelines of elections, so that they can also discourage people from turning out. There are people that gain in deciding in some of this in the outcome of some of these actions, and that's what we're telling people. And you also know that there's also a popular narrative in Nigeria, not just in Ekiti, that that your vote does not count, and we're telling young people especially that your vote counts. And if your vote does not count, nobody will be there to buy it. And these are some of the words we're using to pacify and encourage citizens to engage in our election system.
Yeah, we're going to talk about voter apathy in a moment, but I want to quickly bring in the issue of security. Because for you and I, CSOs and journalists and all the neutral elements within the election, we're more interested in the process than who wins. Politicians are more interested in who wins and who loses. That's none of my business. Ours is the process itself. So in terms of security, what do you know? What do you see? What are you hearing?
Yeah, in terms of securities, because we have also engaged with the lead security agency in the state, as the police. The police stated that we are bringing in 12,000 officers and men into the state. Yesterday, I saw a lot of police convoy moving around town. And what I would say is that the security agencies need to also engage with some level of professionalism. Even the ways the convoys were moving can also install some fear in citizens. So the police has assured us that they have their plans, and they are seriously going to protect the border town. Because particularly Ekiti, some local government in Ekiti know that most of the local governments that experienced kidnapping recently border with some states like Kwara and other states. So the security agencies said that they are on top of their game, and they are going to be deploying their officers and men to some of these locations. And like the police, the CP, that's the Commissioner of Police, stated during our meeting some days back, specifically on Monday, he stated that they're going to be implementing what they describe as the cycle theorem, where they're going to have like three layers of security apparatus. Let me use that word. And he said that the soldier will be in the outer layer. They'll have the policemen in the inner layer. Then in the middle layer, I think that's where people like the MOPO will be there so that they can provide support. And they believe that this particular model will help them provide sufficient security. We've also learned that the DIG of the zone will be around for the elections. Other cities will be coming. Something close to saying that almost every local government will have CP manning them. And this is to ensure that there's the state is secured for elections. And you also will remember the history of election, of security rascality in Ekiti elections, especially in 2014, where there were tensions in terms of, and also reports of lack of professionalism of police and security agencies in the state. There are also agencies to say that in the last few months, in recent years, security agents have professionally elections. We encourage them to continue in that direction. Thank you.
All right, well, Sophia, we wish we can have more time. I was just looking at through the data of what the search engine provided for us in terms of voter turnout. I think the highest was in 2010 when Kaide Fayemi won. I think there was a rerun exercise, there was a court, and then I think later on, Ayo Fayose took over again from him. So he's been reducing, but the highest was 70-something% as at 2000 and 2010. But every other has been like 40-something%. The last I think was 30-something%.
Yeah, so, 40-something. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see whether this can be an improvement. We don't expect it to be a tough, rough. That's the word I wanted to use, a rough one. But Friday or Saturday will tell. So I must thank you for coming on the program. I wish you guys the best. Sophia Bichi, Head of Knowledge Management and Learning at Yaga Africa. Thank you. All right, from here, we will talk about what's playing out in South Africa. In fact, we're going to be joining someone in South Africa to talk about these xenophobic attacks. I remember over 200 Nigerians have been brought back by the Nigerian government. Kudos to them for looking out for our citizens. And I remember the NITCOM chairman actually talking about, like, look, none of these persons are criminals. They're just doing their job. But because of the xenophobic attacks, people like places like Malawi, Zimbabwe, and other countries have literally been harassed out of that country, or they are undocumented. Well, they would not like to use the word harass, but that's the way other Africans have seen it. And they've seen it play out in the World Cup supports and otherwise. But we're going to expand all of this conversation in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. So let's head to that conversation. Really very essential this morning. We've heard from many Nigerians, but let's get to speak to someone who is South African and hear what exactly his thoughts are. Faswane Palele is the president, Pan-Africanist Youth Congress of Azania. He joins us live on the program. Thank you indeed, Faswane, for agreeing to talk to us here on Channel CV.
Thank you very much, my brother. We really appreciate the opportunity. I'm not a president of the Pan-Africanist Youth Congress of Azania. I am otherwise the presidential spokesperson, which means I speak on behalf of the president of the party. I just needed to make that clarity so that it sings.
All right.
But my name is Faswane Palele, and I'm a Pan-Africanist activist.
Yes. So I'm not sure exactly where your residence in SA. You can begin your thoughts with that, but all of what has played out now, you seem to think that the migration of Africans is historical and due to economic reasons. I mean, we all know that. But for you and your party, how have you had to receive the fact that your fellow brothers from the continent have had to go through series of harassment?
Well, it's very unfortunate. From the Paiko point of view, we are very disheartened, but we also provided an analysis in our statement. Just after President of the Republic of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, gave his view on the 7th of this month. We depart from the point that we recognize the challenges related to migration, and we analyze society from that point, that we do not dismiss the reality of the problems we face, but we also contextually level these challenges that we are facing with the failures and the challenges facing our own government. I mean, there is a problem of border control in South Africa. There is a challenge of porous borders where illegal immigrants, save to mention African or non-African by origin, but there are so many illegal immigrants in South Africa that are here illegally. And this is not only a matter of a failing government in South Africa, but it's also a question of failing African states that are simply not servicing their people. It cannot always be that, you know, the argument is leveled to economics at all times. There are many of our brothers who are unfortunately running away from their countries for various reasons. And when they get to South Africa, instead of following the laws of the country and ultimately be integrated into society as people who are asylum seekers and people who are here basically to look for economic opportunities and properly be categorized as economic migrants, people simply come and commit all forms of criminality, and they are never held accountable. It's very complex to trace a person that is not recorded in the country systems when they commit this particular crime. But at the level of our party, our position is clear. There is no foreigner in Africa who is African like me and you. I mean, the question of immigration itself must be traced on a historical context, in that it cannot be taken at a face value. These are attributable to the failures of our government to enforce legal immigration as such. This can also be attributed to issues of unemployment, issues of dilapidating school infrastructure across the continent, not only here in South Africa, but across the continent, which are factors basically that pushes people away from their places of origin and go look for other better opportunities in different places across the world. Obviously, for African children, the first point to go to will always be Africa. It only comes to the question of where in Africa do we choose to go. But there are serious factors underwriting the movement of people from one country to another. In the neoclassical theory of migration, because Paiko and its leadership divulges theory a lot to understand how to analyze society. And when we engage the neoclassical theory of migration, it assists us to navigate these challenges that are persisting today, in that they are in three classes by nature. The first class is that these problems that we are facing as a people, as a continent, and ultimately as different parts which are called countries, is that they are at a micro level. We are dealing with individual views and individual perspectives and feelings. We're dealing with how individuals that Lenin describes as the power that was created by the very people, but consistently grows above the people themselves. These are the individuals whose feelings and egos and all of this are now taken into account at the micro level. But at the macro level, which is the second aspect, this now issues broadens out. This is where you speak of economic migration, you speak of socio-economic migration, you speak of educational migration, where people come to the country because they are seeking educational studies and not only job opportunities.
If you can hear me.
At a meso level, just to conclude it quickly, at a meso level of our analysis is the fact that society generally is looked at in terms of social groupings and how various groupings are larger than the other, and they are able.
All right, Paswani, I think you've made your point. Paswani, you've made your point. So a direct question: where does Paiko stand with xenophobic attacks on Africans? I use that word deliberately. Where does your party and you stand? Because we've had Africans, even Cyril, President Cyril Ramaphosa said, oh, South Africa is not xenophobic, trying to talk about regularization, issue of border control and all of that. All that grammar we've heard. Where does your party stand before I ask my next question, as far as the issue of xenophobic attacks is concerned?
Well, the party is very firm on the position of xenophobia. We completely condemn xenophobia. We are not anti-African. We are pro-Africans. Any organization of our people on the lines of language, on the lines of how people differently speak, or where people originally come from, is completely condemned by ECO. We call on calm across the country, in that African brothers should not be looked at in the same lenses that the apartheid enemy was properly located and looked at.
All right. Now,
so we do not agree with xenophobia against Africans.
Yes, I know Jacinta leads the March on March, and the other gentleman, I can't remember his name. And sometimes people have analyzed and said, it's difficult not to believe that there is an element of complicity in the government, given that citizens are now enforcers of issues around migration. That cannot happen in Nigeria. I can tell you that for a fact. But let's even broaden it further, because it sounds more like Afrophobia than even xenophobia. Because all of this thing that's going on in KZN, in Durban, is happening in Johannesburg, in Gauteng. I don't hear it happening in places like Western Cape. Let's even say Cape Town, for instance, controlled by DA, where you have a lot of Dutch people, the Afrikaans, and all of these European migrants. Are these people that are marching saying that it's only black people that are illegally staying in South Africa and there are no undocumented whites from Europe, whether it's Dutch, French, or German?
Well, I mean, that argument has been persistent as to the question of who, in terms of the color lines, is an illegal immigrant. And I can tell you something that many people in the country do not know. South Africa is a maritime economy, which means most of the economic activity taking place in South Africa happens through the oceans, where services are interchanged. So whether it's clothes that we're wearing, it's food that we're eating, or whatever the kind of service, it goes in and out of the country via the oceans. In the maritime safety security sector, it is reported that over 144,000 illegal immigrants that are white in color, who originally come from England, Sweden, and all those Baltic states in the West, are reported there. But the state, which is an organ of the continuity of the irreconcilability of class antagonisms, is the one that is failing our people. I mean, from where we stand as PAECO, we do not expect that the people themselves, unless in the precedence of an unled revolution, would go to the oceans and check out white illegal immigrants by themselves. We believe when these people who are in government called for power to take over government, they said they want to use political power to achieve economic freedom. So we call on them to go where there are white illegal immigrants, because by white illegal immigrants, we are talking about the real owners of the means of production. And in any case, why would government leaders tell us as young people here in this country that there are other white illegal immigrants, but we are facing Africans? We are dealing with the problem that we are able to confront because we are able to speak to our own brothers. We go closely to them and speak to them and tell them that it is simply in the context that we want to fix the country and we want to encourage you to go and fix your own countries. But of course, this would be misconceptualized as we engage and as days are unfolding. But really, it's an absurd argument to tell people who are so organized, because we are talking about hundreds of thousands of South Africans who are marching in each and every city, in each and every town. You cannot delegitimize their feelings and their concerns. Instead, government should be coming on board and trying to find a solution that Africa on Africa cannot have violence in between. There must be a solution to the current crisis. And after this solution, all of us united as one Africa must then confront the problem of white illegal immigration. This is where we come from as PAECO.
All right.
We believe African problems deserve African solutions, and we'll deal with the external factors when all African problems have been settled.
So I'm just wondering perhaps what you would say to people who, Nigerians, Malawians, Zimbabweans, who are married to South Africans. What do you say to them, both male and females, and their children? For some of them, they've known no other country or place than South Africa. Perhaps father Nigerian or father Malawian or mother Malawian and father South African. What do you say to such children?
Well, I mean, it's like we said, this is a very unfortunate experience for African people. And, you know, a child that was born here in South Africa is a South African. It's only a difficult question of whether parents should separate with their children or whether wives should separate with their husbands, as the case may be. This is what I was trying to explain earlier, that at the meso level of analysis, we look at society and its interrelations on the basis of social groupings, and the family structure is part of those social groupings. From where we are, would appreciate an engagement, because in fact, if you look at the people who are called African illegal immigrants, these are mainly people from the SADC countries. I think there are many platforms in the SADC space that would permeate real decisions that could affect the resolving of these problems that we are faced with. Maybe then, because I mean, when we're listening to the arguments by Usis Jacinta, Upagalum Tagati, and Ungizwe Mkhunu and other activists on the ground, their point is not to say Africans must go permanently and never come back to South Africa. Apparently, their argument is that go and fix your own countries, but when you come to South Africa, you must come with papers. You must come as legal persons, and we will never chase you out.
Faswani, the more you say this, it's perhaps disheartening for some people. There are videos of people from Nigeria, Malawi, and Zimbabwe who were saying, look, I have my papers. I went through the process of documentation. So I don't know how you, but let me go and ask you a direct question, because I know this issue is also political. If your party was in power, for instance, how would you tackle groups like the March and the Oduduola, I don't know if it's Odudula or whatever, I don't know how it's pronounced, but how would you tackle such groups who have decided to take this up and harass and go to the shops of other Africans, you know, and cut away with their goods and all of that?
Primarily, as a party, like we say, there would have never been a situation where these types of protests in communities are taking place. These protests, my brother, are taking place primarily because people are not receiving services. If people were receiving direct services from government, there would never be a complaint that our African brothers are here taking jobs and so forth. Government is supposed to service its people. If we were in government, the first thing that we would have done is to sit down with Operation Tutula. We sit down with March and March, and we understand exactly where they are coming from. We want to understand their theoretical underpinnings, and we want to then get exactly where they want to go or what exactly they want to achieve. Would have easily met them halfway and would go then and sit down with all our African brothers and their representative structures in the country and have an African solution to an African problem. If we would agree on one issue, it would be that there is no foreigner who is African in any African country, in the same way that the West are doing. People can move from each and any country in the West to the other without a passport or anything. Our position would be the same, that Africa must be one, Africa is one, and our message is that of African unity, because African unity is exactly what we are fighting for. The other issues that we are experiencing, unfortunately, these are what maybe people would call convoluted, otherwise summatively, you know, casualties, so to say, casual instances of the revolution that is about to ensue, would have kept the revolution that would be unled.
Swani, we can debate about this over and over, but it looks like the black Africans or the Africans themselves are the soft target here, which is why I gave a clear, direct poser with Western Cape run by DA especially places like Cape Town. In fact, I tell people until I see it happening in some of those neighborhoods, then I'll take this seriously, which is why we say there's also political intricacy in all of it. We can't dismiss that. The politics is in the open. But let's talk about basic housekeeping by South Africa itself, because you mentioned this in passing. If the government will do what they have to do, the people will not have to do what, because they are now saying, for instance, EFF President Julius Malema, when the Ghanaians had left, 300 of them went back to Ghana. He said, now that the Ghanaians have left, where are the 300 jobs you've created in replacement? In fact, people are even arguing to the point that, why are you even talking about jobs? Why are you not talking about creating enterprise itself? So now that you've chased out 300 people who themselves may have created jobs for both South Africans and non-South Africans, have you been able to create those jobs, as to speak? Because there are nuances around the fact that some South Africans are lazy. That is the nuance. So you can reply to that. Julius Malema has argued that some are educated, they don't want to take low-level jobs. That's why they don't do the kind of jobs they do. Others are saying some are outrightly lazy. You bring them to come and work for you, they will not come to work 2 days and 3. They have excuses and all of these things. How do you respond to this? Because these are people who live and work and have their lived-in reality within South Africa itself. So let's talk about South Africans and these marchers and the basic housekeeping before you blame others for your problems as well, because that's actually where it starts from.
No, thank you very much. I think it's quite upset. It's even very perturbing to listen to a president of another political party commanding so many masses of our people. And on the other platforms, like television, tells the very same masses that they are lazy. I think it's an insult to our people who would never agree with such sentiments, that South Africans are lazy, or the sentiments that suggest that South Africans have got a preference of job opportunities because in whatever case they went to school and therefore they feel that they cannot take jobs that they did not go to school for. That's a very weird argument from a person who calls himself a Pan-Africanist. And really, we don't want to turn this interview session into an individual attack or anything of that sort. We simply have a view that there is no basis at all in whatever the EFF president has said, and we fully do not agree with him in this problem that we are faced with as a people. But to give you a context, is that, you know, in terms of the housekeeping problems of South Africa, we have leveled issues against government. There is a problem of endemic corruption in South Africa. We said there is a failure to enforce immigration laws. I can argue with you now that we cannot delegitimize the reality that our African brothers and sisters came to our country illegally. In this case, we are arguing for a borderless Africa, an Africa that is one, an Africa that is able to trade amongst themselves without any limitations. But for where we are, there are borders in literally each and every country across Africa. And if I was to live here in South Africa and go to Nigeria, for example, and enter Nigeria illegally, I would be arrested right upon my arrival. I won't be wasted time upon, there won't be any engagements, there won't be debates that you broke our laws. I'll be arrested and I'll be deported back to South Africa without any question. Our African brothers and sisters come to our country illegally. Would appreciate Pan-Africanists agree with us on this one, that Pan-Africanism does not mean a porous flooding of illegality from one country to the other, and we try to justify that by replacing the challenge of the fact that people came in illegally. So they must fix the part that they must not come illegally. They must go and come legally first. They must go and fix the countries. They must go and fix their paperwork. And another challenge that we put to our South African government is that majority of the people who are now illegal in this particular argument is people who came to South Africa predominantly legally. These are people who had papers when they were coming to South Africa, most of them. But their documentation expired while they are here in the country. And it is not their fault that their documentation expired. And when they apply, they are taken back and forth, and they end up becoming illegal residents in this country. It is a problem of government as well, because it is also recorded in the South African history that illegal immigrants are able to vote in the South African polity. So if illegal immigrants are able to vote in the South African polity, you would agree indeed that there is a great level of complicity of the government, because they know that if these illegal immigrants are able to forge even voting, these people then would keep us and sustain our stay in parliament, where they enjoy benefits. I think at the bottom of the problem is a government that is unwilling to fix its own kitchen, but met with also a fluctuating number of people who are from otherwise Africa coming into South Africa. I would appreciate if the government can then go back to the drawing board.
Yes, allow me squeezing this question. If you can answer in 40 seconds or less. I wonder if perhaps South Africans are aware that they have other South Africans who are resident in other countries and who have businesses. For instance, here in Nigeria, one of the biggest cable network, DSTV, many Nigerians use that to watch programs on TV. I don't know if South Africans are aware that they own that business. MTN Nigeria, for instance, as well. Two big businesses. And there are those who are questioning perhaps if their licenses should be revoked. So how do you advise those from other countries who have had to suffer this to react to how their citizens have been treated in South Africa?
Well, thank you very much. Again, we believe strongly that South Africa is a capitalist state as it is, and there is a misconception from our African brothers and sisters all over that maybe when they cancel licenses of various South African companies operating in different parts of the continent, they are actually probably deactivating the South African economy, and that is not the case. The South African economy is not predominantly ran by DSTV, neither is it ran by MTN. If Nigeria decides to cut the over 120 businesses that are based in Nigeria, and that came legally, and that provided documentation to the government, and that paid the levy to the Nigerian government to be able to operate their businesses, and they are not operating their businesses without permits, and most importantly, they are not operating their businesses in those countries as illegal immigrants. It is very important that when we level this argument against South Africans, we also check whether there are South Africans in other parts of the continent who are there in these countries illegally. Because what we would say then is the same position that, yes, there is no foreigner in any African country across, but people must not leave their countries illegally to enter illegally in other countries, even here in Africa, and call that Pan-Africanism. That is the problem that we are faced with. So Nigeria can, in fact, would even encourage Nigeria to cut the networks of or the business operations of either MTN or DSTV. Those channels do not serve any purpose for our people here in South Africa. MTN sells very expensive data for our people here in South Africa. So whether Nigeria cuts their business, it works exactly good for us, because we are given then an opportunity to bring our innovation in terms of data must fall out, because we do not even afford the data from MTN. I think that is our position.
Absolutely. You've made your case, you've made your points. The arguments will continue. There are those who would say, argue that there are those who have papers, who are legal migrants, and who have been harassed and treated in unprintable words, and all of that are called unprintable names. So we have to leave it here. Presidential spokesperson for Pan-Africanist Youth Congress of Azania, Paiko. Thank you indeed, Mr. Feswani Palele. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Much appreciated, my brother. Thank you very much, and beautiful day to all your listeners across. Thank you so much.
All right. It's interesting to see the brotherhood on TV. We hope this extends to our brothers indeed who are in South Africa and they are treated better. This is the morning brief. We're not done with you just yet. After this moment, we get to talk about something really essential, which has been in the pipeline for quite some time now, the switchover. We'll tell you all about it in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's now talk about two issues, but broadly we'll focus on the digital switchover. What exactly is digital switchover? But there's also the NBC that lost at the appeal court because it imposes fine on broadcasters for whatever infraction there is. The court says, excuse me, who are you to impose fine? Are you a tribunal? Are you a court? Because if you impose fine, that means the crime was committed. It needs to go through the right process. So they've lost yet again on that one. But let's focus on digital switchover. I'm not going to do all the breakdown. We have the chairman of Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, Mr. Tony Akioto. He joins us. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
We're doing very well. So I would like you to go from the basics. People have heard digital switchover, timeline extended over and over and over and over. So now we're here. So first, I would like you to walk the audience through what digital switchover means, whether it's been deployed or if not been deployed, how soon will it be deployed, the operationalization generally.
Well, as you know, this was a decision taken by the International Telecommunications Union as way back as close to 20 years ago. Nations all over the world were expected to migrate from analog to digital broadcasting. The whole idea is to free broadcast spectrum and make money therefrom, allow telecommunications to use part of that spectrum. And Nigeria has, over the years, gone through so many failed attempts at digital migration. There was a pilot case in 2016 or thereabout in about 8 cities, but that didn't work out, including Abuja, Jos, Oshogbo, Port Harcourt. And the NBC has gone back to review the process and come up with what they now call the big picture, using digital, direct to home satellite. And this provoked quite a lot of discussions in the industry, and stakeholders thought that digital DTT, which is direct to home, as it is today, has been more impactful than using satellites. So we had various stakeholders engagements in the past 2 months, and BON's position was very clear on this matter, that given the very poor internet penetration in Nigeria, you can't solely rely on satellite to deploy television signals across the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. And I believe that the National Broadcasting Commission saw reason with us. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, intervention helped to prevent what would have been a very rancorous relationship between broadcasters and the regulator. But at the end of the day, we had a 4-hour session 3 days ago and came up with some resolutions, which I believe will be a win-win for the industry.
So, sir, let's talk about some of the. So, I did ask whether it's not been deployed yet. Let's be clear on that. Has it been deployed?
Well, what they have actually done now, is to launch free TV.
Okay.
They launched free TV, which provides you with 100 stations, and you don't have to pay, but you need a box to be able to access the free TV. You need a box to access it, as long as you are tuned to the right satellite. So that is what they have done now, and this will be on for the next 18 months.
Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with Gov'ship.
That is clear.
Mr. Godfrey Ohabonwa has been very critical of this move. First, he's talked about timing, but he's also talked about, because I understand he's also the association, he's the chairman of the Association of Licensed Set-Top Box Manufacturers of Nigeria. He said that the planned transition is a mere aggregation of channels on Incomsat platforms and not a digital terrestrial television migration as originally approved under Nigeria's DSO framework. And he questioned the issue of timing, given that we're in a transition period. I'm sure you're familiar with the critics of this whole approach, but using him as a point man here, how would you respond?
Indeed, I agree to a large extent with Godfrey Ohabuwa. Godfrey is one of the investors in set box manufacturing, and a couple of them were licensed, and they paid 50 million naira to get licensed to the National Broadcasting Commission. They set up industry, and we believe that in line with government's policy of Nigerian first, people like that should be encouraged. And what we have said to the regulator and the Ministry of Information under the Honorable Minister is that it is not fair for those who have gone to banks, take loans at exorbitant interest rates, set up industries, manufactured buses, and they are not bringing them into the picture. And we had actually made this abundantly clear, and the regulators have assured us that they're ready to carry everybody along, that they need millions of boxes, and that even the factory set up by our members is not even enough to produce the quality or the quantum of boxes that they need. But the argument of Godfrey Ohabuwa and some people within that ecosystem in the broadcast value chain is that they suspect that government is going to import boxes from China and some other places, cheap boxes, and dump them on the market. And this, they believe, will not go well for the industry they have set up in Nigeria to create jobs, employ Nigerians. But these are issues that we're looking at, and we have said government will look for a way to compensate those who have invested. Otherwise, it's going to discourage Nigerians from investing in the economy.
Well, Mr. Kyoto, I'm not particularly sure why this has taken so long, and that's why I'm not really optimistic about it. I was trained as a journalist in 2013, and I heard about the DSO. I was excited, looked forward to it. Like you've mentioned, you know, we are almost 20 years down the line. In countries like across Europe, North America, Japan, Australia, DSO was accomplished over a decade ago, 10 years ago. Back here with the continent, we are still battling, setting up committees, going back and forth, and that's why for many Nigerians that trust gap would always stay. So what makes you really positive that this is going to work now?
Well, I believe that just like the examples that you cited, different countries deploy different infrastructure, and these to a large extent also had to do with their broadcast culture, their terrain, their environment. So it's an odd mix of internet connectivity, ETT and DTH. And we have said that in Nigeria, because our internet penetration is not ideal, it's not the best of what you have in Europe and other parts of the world. So let's have a hybrid of internet, of digital terrestrial and DTH, because DTH has its own challenges, delivering signals through satellite, particularly if it's KU band. We're in the rainy season, and KU band has a way of not being stable when weather is inclement. So these are issues that we have brought to the table during our stakeholders' engagement with the regulator and everybody in the value chain, and I believe that they agree with us, and they are going to take a look at it, because the consultation and discussion continues. We are in Bonn have insisted that the DG team must be brought back. Unfortunately, the chairman of DG team, engineer Amana, died a couple of years back. But we have a very competent and seasoned engineer, Tunde Adebola, who is acting chairman. So the minister has assured us that the DG team is going to be reconstituted, and I believe that we work together. There is no reason why we cannot deliver a digital switchover that all Nigerians and all stakeholders will be happy with.
Well, this may not be a big deal to some Nigerians, but for millions of other Nigerians who cannot continue to subscribe every month, and other, cost of living crisis we've had to battle with, this is really interesting. It sounds like good news. We hear there's no subscription, it's totally free.
Well, for the free TV, but that's going to be for 18 months. And the regulator had come up with some proposed agreements between those who are involved in this process, as the regulator itself, a company providing audience measurement, and some other stakeholders. But we had insisted that some clauses in that agreement will not encourage those who have invested in the industry, because it imposes some obligations that we think will not go well for the interests of our members. So our lawyers are taking a look at it, and we have said our members should not sign those agreements until our legal team meets the NBC team, and then we can fine-tune and knock off some technical jargons and clauses which we believe will not protect the rights of our members.
So within the time we have, let's also talk about, we can dwell on this as long as we want, but because we wanted you to speak on two broad issues besides the digital switchover.
Somehow, I believe we'll get it right somewhere along the line.
Yeah, hopefully we should get it right. It's about developing and fine-tuning. But you made a very critical statement about supporting Nigeria first. So all of the men who have invested, bought licenses or paid for licenses should also be given priority, except they do not have the capacity, then they can look elsewhere.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about the NBC's constant attempt at extending its powers in terms of managing and putting in their own understanding, in their own rationale, to say they want some sanity in the media space. And one of it is imposition of fine. Now, they appealed the case that was filed. They lost at the trial court. Now they lost at the appeal court. The court saying, look, your case is incompetent. In fact, one of the first things that was said in the initial case was the fact that as soon as the word fine comes in, you're talking about maybe an offense being committed, and it has to pass through a court or a tribunal. But how does the bond receive this news of NBC losing at the appeal court?
Well, for us, we're not excited. We're not thrilled that our regulator and ourselves, the operators, have always had issues that ended up in court. But remember that the civil society, more often than not, takes our case to court because they believe that our rights, as enshrined in the Constitution, specifically Section 39 of the Nigerian Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended, is being infringed upon, because the right to impact, receive ideas and information is a right that can't be abridged and can't be compromised in any way. And that's why where media rights case comes in. And they won in two high courts, and they also went to the Court of Appeal. But don't rule out the fact that the NBC will still go on appeal up to the Supreme Court level, because the judgment yesterday was about procedures. The NBC case or the filing was said to be procedurally defective. So I foresee that they might go beyond that and go to the Supreme Court. But that does not serve the interest of anybody. I believe that regulators and licensees should find a mutual way to work together for the interest of the industry.
Maybe I'll just quickly ask if perhaps fines are the only way of regulating media houses.
I agree with you that the issue of fines should not even come in the first place. The code, as it is, needs to be reviewed. The 6th edition of the code, which came into operation in 2019, in fact, it's the longest edition of the code that we have had, that has not gone through a review. That's about 7 years. The first edition came in 1993, after the industry was deregulated in 1992. And thereafter, between 3 and 4 years, you had a review of the code because of changes in technology, the evolution of digital broadcasting. But Be that as it may, I believe that one of the key things that we should be looking at doing now is the act establishing the FBC itself. The act is overdue for review. And this is where the National Assembly comes in. There are different versions of the act before the National Assembly. And I believe that the lawmakers should urgently look at ways to ensure that we strengthen broadcasting. We have the right people in place administering broadcasting, and that is getting the relevant clauses in the code which empower, for instance, I mean, the Minister of Information can wake up in the morning. The code gives so much power. The Act gives so much power to the Minister of Information. We're lucky that we have a distinguished gentleman today as minister. But you had a former minister who probably just woke up one morning and said that he was going to have an amendment to the 6th edition of the code. And that was where all these fines came in. And they come in different categories. The regulator can decide to impose what they call light fines of between 200,000 and 1 million. There are also fines of between 5 million to 10 million. And there is the extreme of 20 million that can be imposed on a station that they believe that has violated the broadcasting code. So, but these are powers that the Act gave to the minister. So it depends on the whims and caprices of the minister who is in power, or his use of discretion in the exercise of the powers given to him by the Act establishing the NBC. So the National Assembly, the earlier they take a look at this, the better for the industry.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Ekiti, because we're in a space where there's a big disruption. Social media has come to stay, and then sometimes for those of us who find ourselves on this other divide, it looks like we do not know how to do our job. Sometimes journalists here in Nigeria have been compared to journalists from international platforms and how they are able to, sometimes function as journalists. And while here, it looks like we have a lot of restrictions and all of that. So when you look at the fact that there's a disruption, there's social media which has come to stay, where everyone now who has a smartphone is a journalist. So
absolutely,
if you were to suggest to the NBC, our regulator, what are the specifics to them in terms of regulating and allowing, perhaps, so that they don't appear like they're stifling Nigerian journalists?
Well, interestingly, the NBC over the years has not done too badly in some areas. Apart from fines, the code is an instrument that I believe the industry needs, because it's a regulatory, an instrument of regulatory work to keep the industry on the highest parts of professionalism and ethical standards. And there are some aspects of the code that new entrants into the profession will need to read. I mean, I have in front of me here the last edition. This is the 6th edition of the code. I can tell you that I've gone through this page to page, and I know what this, in terms of the responsibilities and what it expects of me as a broadcaster, not even only as chairman of the Broadcasting Association of Nigeria, but as a practicing broadcaster. And we all must endeavor to read this and the responsibilities and obligations the code imposes on us. The code itself also mandates the NBC to do quite a number of things that the NBC has not been doing over the years. And one of them is the issue of training, to ensure that professionalism is enhanced in the industry. So it's quite a lot, a gamut of things that as regulators you expect them to do, and we as practitioners ourselves, things that we needed to do that we have also failed. So it's a case of the chicken and the egg, which comes first. But all of us have a role and responsibility, particularly as we come down to the elections, to ensure that the right things are done and that broadcasting actually serves the good, not only for the politicians, but the man on the street himself.
Omar, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. It's an ongoing convo. We'll keep it going. And the real idea is to make this space workable, operational, and interesting, and as responsible as well for all of us. Mr. Tony Akiotu is the Chairman, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. All right, so as it is, you know, the World Cup is ongoing. I think tomorrow we need to talk about the World Cup, but not today. But congratulations to Ghana.
To Ghana.
They were able to pull it off.
DR Congo as well.
DR Congo surprised to 1-1.
1-1 with Portugal.
I think my proudest moment of the continent will be Cabo Verde. That's how they choose. So the English says Cape Verde, but since they are Portuguese origin, you know, it's a mix of Europeans and African slaves and all of that. So they call them Capo Verde.
Capo Verde.
They made, in fact, literally the celebrations online was intense because this is a small island nation of less than 1 million people, about maybe
500,000.
500,000 against a super, you know, superstar team of Spain. You know that
defending champions.
When we talk about the countries that are likely to win the World Cup, we're talking about
the favorites to
Spain.
win.
So, congratulations to all the African teams that are making us proud, and well, the ones that are losing, including our brothers in South Africa. Nigerians and others are still praying for you to lose. Because of your conduct, your political conduct with the xenophobic, which some people have argued, and it's difficult to debate it, that this is more Afrophobic, because that's why I was asking Faswani, I said, why is a match and Dululu not going to places like Western Cape or Cape Town, where you cannot tell me you do not have undocumented migrants from Europe, whether it's UK, and all of those people. Well, they know what they are doing with their politics, but we know what we understand. So we'll continue to support. Whether it's South Africa, the 10 African teams, I'm supporting them, even though South Africa is getting on our nerves. We'll still support them. They are our brothers, you know. But Africans are still very angry with South Africans. But if they win, it's good for Africa. So congratulations to all the African victors and the ones that lost. Try again the next match, and the ones that drew, good luck.
Absolutely. We wish them the best, indeed, because the way the continent is even celebrated is like we've even won the World Cup already, but this is still the group stage. But I mean, we're a fun people, we're a happy continent, and that's why I'm sure we're seeing all of the energy that we're receiving on social media, especially for Cape Verde or Capo Verde, or anyhow you want to pronounce or call their names. The 40-year-old goalkeeper, is it Vozinha? In fact, his mother, he got more than 1 million followers after that game.
I think about 2 million.
As it stands now.
50,000.
I saw his mother granted an interview. All of a sudden, she's a celebrity. 10 million we're here. Wow.
Oh, wow. 4 million.
4 million as it stands.
The power sports from less than 50,000.
Less than 50,000.
So, because he made Africa proud. As a matter of fact, we also celebrate all the Nigerians that are representing other countries. Olise, Balogun.
Oh, my word.
15 of them.
Let's not go there. That France national.
Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Giga. Sunrise Daily is next, and the ladies are on standby. Good morning.